Hello and welcome to Filibusters in Fine Print, where AMGA's public policy team gives you the insider view on healthcare regulations and legislation. Thanks so much for joining us for the latest from Washington, D.C.
Hi, and welcome to Filibusters in Fine Print. I'm Daryl Drevna, filling in for our usual host, Chet Speed, who's on assignment in Nashville. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'd like to go around and have everyone on the team introduce themselves.
Jamie Miller, Ambassador Goodwill. Happy to be here.
Alicia Sawyer, Government Relations Assistant.
Lauren Lightning, Director of Government Relations. I like the term on assignment because it feels like Chet should be reporting live.
Is he in Fallujah or something like that?
Exactly.
Journalism project.
I thought a lot about how to phrase that. It's like, I know what I'm going with. Back to my radio days. Like, he's on assignment. We'll be back filing his report later on. And here's an awkward transition, though. So we always start with an icebreaker. And I was thinking, here we are mid-September. The pumpkin spice lattes have been out for about 6 months now. But it's getting into that time of year when people start decorating for Halloween. So, as a kid, what was your favorite Halloween costume?
I was a princess.
Shocking.
I used like a old bra. I was a flower girl, so I got to just rock that dress and put a crown on it, like beaming.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
I think I was a vampire at least 5 times.
I would not have guessed that.
No.
I really like fake blood, and I feel like Halloween is the only time you can really get away with that.
All right.
Okay.
In a funny way.
We're all laughing. Yeah. Jamie, you're up.
You're actually 105 years old.
Yeah. It got really hot in here.
Because I had the right haircut, I liked dressing up as Shaggy from,
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because I had the sambas, I had the long hair, and
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah.
Those teens went through a lot on that show. Like, that's a lot to put on
That
a bunch of
is.
teenagers to, like, solve all these murders.
In a van. Oh, that's too funny. I had a trench coat, so you could be reporter and be on assignment, or you could be a spy. You get all sorts of, so I got a lot of use out of that trench coat and fedora. So that's a good time.
Renaissance man.
Exactly. So talking about Renaissance, it seems like we, that's actually not really Renaissance because you'd think.
You're saying people in Congress are Renaissance?
Yes, I'm not. It's probably the exact opposite.
They can do everything.
Except pass legislation on time.
Yeah.
So, which means we're going to run out of funding here in a couple of weeks. The deadline's coming up on September 30th. I know you all have been hard at work meeting with folks on the Hill, advancing AMGA's agenda. You've got our fall priorities letter coming out soon that's going to detail what our requests of Congress are and how we can best support providers. So I'm curious from the team, can you tell me a little about your experience on the Hill, how this all comes to a head at these deadlines?
Well, Congress has a very, it's 9:00 the night before an assignment is due, and they just sat down to write their 20-page paper. That didn't happen to me at all. So it is always like a last-minute push to go through what's going to happen before government funding runs out. And it's also a really lovely reminder of just the sheer amount of panic that we get from when you're a staffer, from constituents who are being told, like, something might be happening to your Medicare, something might be happening to this or that. And you work on the Hill, you get a ton of phone calls. I wonder if that's still the case.
Yeah.
Faxes, do people remember those? We would get tons of faxes that would come in and a lot of emails that were expressing concern. And one of the things that you have to do when you work for a congressional member is write letters back to these constituents. So sometimes you're like writing one letter, form letter that goes out to like sometimes 2,000 people because you have to log every call, every fax, every email. And so that's always not fun when you're also trying to like work on legislation to make sure the government stays open.
Yeah, and I think the CR is even a broader conversation. As you mentioned, getting last-minute faxes and calls. It wasn't always just about a bridge in Georgia or a courthouse in South Carolina. It was about legislative riders like Medicare cuts or telehealth extenders. So this idea of like end of year thing, as Lauren mentioned, Congress doesn't do anything until the last second. that allows members of Congress and policymakers to attach things that they couldn't have usually gotten passed. So the concept's really called a Christmas tree bill. But if you put enough things in a bill, everybody has to support. That's how you get things done in Congress. So that's kind of what we're talking about this year. At the end of the year, September, end of the fiscal year, we got telehealth extenders, Medicaid DISH, hospital at home, GIPSy, advanced APMs, tax credits, enhanced premium tax credits, a lot of things that would never pass on their own. And so that's kind of the debate.
I think Christmas tree is one of my favorite little Hill lingo things. Like, oh, it's the Christmas tree. It's got to pass. Like, people, what are you talking about? So I would ask, Alicia, can you take that concept and exactly how is this process supposed to work?
Yeah, I have been kind of excited to make this reference. I'm going to date myself a little bit, but there's this popular TikTok audio from like the last couple years, and it goes like, luckily I have purse. And Congress has purse. They have the power of the purse. That is given to them by the Constitution. And so the federal government can't spend money without Congress passing an appropriations law and telling them how to spend it. They get to direct how it's done. This process starts with the House and Senate Appropriations Committees. Each committee has a designated subcommittees responsible for developing and drafting appropriations for specific agencies. So at AMJ, we look at specifically the subcommittee on labor, health and human services, education, and related agencies, because, obviously all of those agencies seem super related. The House Appropriations Subcommittee on Labor, Health and Human Services and Education and related agencies has actually already released their fiscal year 2026 bill. It features a 6% funding decrease from last year of $7 billion, and $108 billion are set aside for HHS, and $100 million for the Make America Healthy Again. And so that's how it works.
Yeah. So is that how it actually works, Jamie?
I would say there are 12 appropriation subcommittees and they do it, but like right now they pass their bills, but they never actually pass into law. There's always these CRs. But I also add that appropriations is a yearly program that deals with, I'm going to say a very DC word, but it's appropriations, which is not mandatory, discretionary spending. But there's this other thing called mandatory spending, which is not what we're talking about today, but that's Medicare, Medicare, Social Security, which accounts for 73% of the government spending. So that's something that we're following as well. So
it's basically an autopilot.
It's on autopilot, yeah.
Congress doesn't have to act every year to keep those checks flowing.
Yeah, and why we care this year about a shutdown is even if it shuts down, the government shuts down, claims will be paid to a certain extent. But there's legislative riders on this CR that need to happen, like telehealth. Like if October 1 they don't do anything, you can't bill for telehealth at all. So that's problematic. And I think Lauren and I guess you did as a Democrat, but as a Republican, like we had to submit a project request. Did earmarks. I mean, it's quite a process. And I think there's also people outside D.C. need to understand that there's Republicans, there's Democrats, then there's this whole other thing called appropriators. Like they have a whole different level of authority. You mentioned 12 subcommittees. Like they have the power of the purse.
They have different titles too. They call themselves cardinals.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah,
and there's cardinals that are assigned, and like it's sort of like the Catholic Church almost. It's like this existing body that a very like select people get to go to Rome and make the decisions. You should go watch Conclave on Peacock. It's such a good movie, but like it's sort of set right there. They have to stand up to debate. It is a whole different thing, and like we don't get to see it because if you work for a member who's not an appropriator, it's like foreign language to you, even people who work there. Yeah. But like the appropriation season starts in the spring, which makes it, and if you have been as a member part of a fly-in in the spring, a part of any sort of thing that's like lobbying for funding for something like NIH, all these programs, and you come to DC February through April, and it is packed full of people of different groups that are wandering around kind of lobbying for their programs to be either like funding to be increased or at least maintain funding. I remember when I worked on the Hill, I think I was doing an average of like 12 to 13 meetings a day of different
That's
groups.
too many meetings.
That's too many meetings. You have
People
to like
wonder why we
avoid
work
people.
till midnight.
Yeah.
Because I got to do my work after dinner.
Yeah, it was just meeting after meeting. Some of it was really sort of nice because like you would see people that you saw every year, so it was almost like a little reunion. Some of it was just really hard. I think some of the disease groups are really hard because like there'd be someone one year and then they wouldn't be there the next year.
Yeah.
And so it was sort of a reminder of how much importance it is for funding for these programs because it really does have a direct impact on constituents. So yeah, you take all these meetings, you talk with your boss, your legislative director about here are the programs that I think we should submit because you only have a certain number of submittals that you could do to the Appropriations Committee. The process is electronic now. Back in the day, you would have to like go physically deliver your appropriations request to the
Yeah.
Appropriations Committee door, sometimes at midnight. Sometimes I would call them like, hey, can I do like 3 or 4 additional funding requests? And they're like, no, make
So you
decisions.
like leave it at their door, like you knock on the door, run away.
Knock on
It
the
is,
door,
it
put your
is,
papers down.
it
Yeah.
is like Halloween.
Rayburn.
Yeah, it really
Ding
is
dong
like
dashed.
Halloween. Yeah, all kinds of goodies. And now they brought back earmarks, which is like a way to pay for programs like, hey, I want a new community center in my district. How can we fund these things? So it is like Christmas. You're putting your Christmas list in early. The kids are showing up. They're like, here's what we want. And then you have to determine as the parent how much money you can spend for each office to submit these requests.
So that I think that really I think paints a really good picture of how this works behind the scenes. So let's skip forward a little bit and think what is actually going to happen. Is Congress going to pass this CR? What exactly does everybody want, at this particular deadline?
I think right now it's hard to tell what exactly is going to happen. We're hearing talk that there's going to be another CR, but the length of that is kind of up in the air, whether it'll be till mid-November or perhaps even until March of next year. And so we're hearing a lot of that because right now, coming back from budget reconciliation, Republicans and Democrats aren't quite ready to start working together again. There's still a little bit of bad blood in the air. Budget reconciliation was an extremely partisan process, and so I think we might be expecting a little bit of that when it comes to funding the government again. And so there's a divide right now, and I think Jamie and Lauren can speak better to what each party wants. Exactly.
Parties want regular order, but they never get it. So, like, regular order regular order for members of Congress are like when you go on a reality TV show and go, I'm not here to make friends. Like, members of Congress love to go, I want to go back to regular order, which is you would pass all these separate appropriations bills, wrap it up in a big bill, and then both bodies would vote on them, negotiate, and then you have that never happens. You just keep asking your professor for an extension on your project. So Congress just keeps asking for extensions to themselves to do the work that they have signed themselves. And so this has kind of become normal. Some people want a clean CR, which means like you don't add any additional things to it. It's just like we continue to fund the government as it is. Some people want to add things to it. It really is, I don't know. The parents are really determining like what size Christmas they're going to have this year, I think, and what the timing is.
Yeah, and I think it depends on what kind of member you are. Some people obviously want the government to exist. Some people don't. So
That's a fundamental
that's-
question.
And so that sometimes these shutdowns help prove a political point that maybe the government isn't needed, or maybe it is needed. And I think the CRs are what's been happening for years and years and years. And so, go back to the shutdown, like maybe or maybe not. I would say more likely than not that they'll figure something out.
They always kind of figure something out. There's been cries from the outside of Congress saying like Democrats should be a little bit more forceful and like not participating in these things. Democrats are like, we would love to have a process that continues on this. So it really is kind of up in the air. And I think a lot of it, and I know Jerry, you're going to bring this up, is like depending on the president.
Yeah, I
Well.
was gonna say you reference a lot of these things. I think these things means what exactly is President Trump's role in all this? What does he want? How is his actions or inactions going to influence a potential shutdown?
Yeah.
I think these conversations are ongoing. I think there's been questions to the president about, Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, about whether he's talked to the president. He just says the president's going to be very involved in this. So it might be a last minute decision on things. There's a lot of demands. Republicans have been taking some hard votes. And they've been passing things that people didn't think were going to be able to pass. Reconciliation was one of those things that no one expected in the beginning of the process. So it actually go through the way that it did. Speaker Mike Johnson has had like a little bit of a winning streak when it comes to these large packages being passed. And one of the reasons why is that President Trump has been the chief lobbyist on this. He always is able to close the deal. I'm going to use his own terms. And so it really just depends. But we also have a narrower margin in the House of Representatives. There was a recent special election in Virginia. And so now Speaker Johnson can only use 2 votes.
And I think it's interesting to talk about Trump because before he became president again in his second term, a lot of these Republicans had a majority, but they couldn't pass some CRs, couldn't pass some things, and because they have a contentious coalition. So because you have extreme right-wing people who don't want to spend any money, you have moderates who don't want to cut certain things like Medicaid. OBBA, Trump got what he wanted. So if like you mentioned, Johnson said that Trump is not, he's involved, but if Trump really wants this done, he can convince the Republicans to get it done. And that's what I think we're waiting for. But yeah, whether or not you like the man or not, but he's able to get his conference, and Obama was able to do it with the Affordable Care Act. So, that shows their ability to lead their conference.
So what exactly do we think that President Trump wants in this go around? He tends to operate last minute. We still got a little bit of time here, but what's he going to want to have? What's he going to want to see in this thing, whether it's a long or short term CR?
I think he's going to see more funding for National Guard in terms of like safety in the cities. I think that he's going to want to shut down this Epstein investigation. Might be able to negotiate as like a sweetener for someone else if people drop this negotiation and sort of take this out of the mainstream conversation. I think it also depends on what he wakes up in the morning and decides that he wants to do. I think it's sometimes a little hard to pin down.
Yeah, and there's things that are non-discretionary, like interest rates, which he doesn't determine. But there's also the debt limit, which is not a debate right now, but will be a debate eventually. So there's other things that he's thinking about. And I think, honestly, with the state of the economy, I think he's maybe got his brain elsewhere. So
Yeah. So you've got this, budget. We talk a lot about the budgetary constraints and pressures facing, AMJ members. Are policymakers, do you think, looking to make additional cuts? Should our members be concerned about more cuts in the future?
I think that it is something to be concerned about. I think there is the potential for further cuts. I mean, Lauren mentioned that if Trump offered something like as a sweetener in the CR to some of the proponents wanting the Epstein files released, I mean, one of those people is massive budget hawk and fiscal conservative and would be looking for potentially cuts as a sweetener, I think. But I mean, it's a possibility. CBO released an estimate that the One Big Beautiful Bill Act added $3.4 trillion to the federal deficit that we will see over the next 10 years. And so policymakers may look to the appropriations process for savings.
I think a specific example for our members during this whole rescission debate about NIH, a lot of our members are getting NIH grants, and now they're not. And that impacts the bottom line of their institutions.
So it's a really, fluid situation. We've got this pressing deadline. Is it going to be a long-term CR, short-term CR? Are we going to shut down? Are we not going to shut down? Can you talk a little bit about your history with this? Just, what it means to be like an AMJ lobbyist or a Hill staffer as that clock is ticking closer and closer and closer to that shutdown day?
if you're a Hill staffer, you're really just sort of waiting and seeing what leadership is going to come down and tell you to do. And then going through possibly a long night of votes. If you're a lobbyist, then you're just praying and listening to gossip and lobbying and doing everything you can to like try to sway the extensions that we're going to be asking for on our legislative priorities. And there's like 5 or 6 extensions that we're asking for on top of all the other things. So Jamie and I were talking earlier about we were at a Celebrate AMGA event, which is something that AMGA lovingly does to the staff, and we were at a dinner, and all of a sudden, what happened, Jamie?
I think I got a text from a Hill staffer about the status of the negotiations. And so Chet, Lauren, and I sat in the corner of a restaurant being told what was going to be happening in that. And it was definitely, I mean, they wanted to hear our perspective, but it was definitely a baked conversation. And the thing is, like, currency in this town is information and timing. So we knew a lot of information, but it was just kind of, it was like 11 o'clock at night, 10:30.
It was 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, and it was late.
Late.
And that's kind of how things happen a lot in DC is you get that information. So
the text strings are blowing up, and you just hope that what are the information that's being texted to you or tweeted by someone is correct, and you kind of go from there.
there's a lot of misinformation. That's a good point. Yeah.
So it's a hurry up and wait situation. So we'll be tracking this closely, but
Yeah, we're like investment bankers. We don't make the money.
don't make the money.
Hurry up and wait.
Yeah, hurry up and wait. So speaking of hurry up and wait, I think I'm getting side eye from our producer over here to wrap this up. So any closing comments from the team?
We are on the Hill lobbying these issues. Our priority letter will be on AMGA's website if you want to check it out. And let's fingers crossed that we can get something across the line this time that's not in March.
Yeah, stay tuned and stay engaged. You do our district advocacy program, and please talk with us.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining us for another edition of Filibusters in Fine Print. If you haven't already, we encourage you to subscribe, so smash that bell. And thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us for Filibusters in Fine Print. This podcast was brought to you by AMGA. For more information about AMGA's advocacy efforts, visit amga.org/advocacy.